Welcome back to Inside Vietnam. I'm your host, and today's story is one that's going to stick with you. Meet Henny. He's 57 years old, from Johannesburg, South Africa. Spent 32 years as a postal worker walking the same routes, living a predictable, quiet life. Then something happened that broke him completely, and like so many men we've featured on this channel, he came to Vietnam looking for a second chance. What he found was a woman who seemed different from all the warnings he'd heard. She never asked for anything. She had family, dignity, plans for her future. She made him feel alive again after years of just existing. And Henny, being the methodical, trusting man he was, believed every word. But here's the thing about being broken and desperate for hope. It makes you blind to what's right in front of you. And by the time Henny finally saw the truth, well, what happened next changed everything. This is his story, in his own words. My name is Henny, and I spent 32 years delivering mail in Johannesburg's northern suburbs. Same routes every day. Randburg, Ferndale, Blackheath. I knew every street, every gate, every dog that would bark when I walked past. Left hand for domestic post, right hand for international. The rhythm of it became part of me, you know? Wake up, sort the mail, walk the route, come home. Reliable, predictable, safe. Morelli's and I bought our house in Randburg in 1998. Nothing fancy, just a 3-bedroom with a small garden where she grew tomatoes and herbs. She worked as a receptionist at a doctor's surgery. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. Saturday mornings, we'd go to the Brightwater Commons, do our shopping, maybe grab a coffee. Sunday was church, then lunch with her family. 26 years of marriage, and I can count on one hand the number of times we had a serious argument. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I was getting ready for work, packing my bag in the bedroom. Marlies was in the kitchen making coffee. I heard the kettle whistle, then stop, then nothing. I called out, "You all right, love?" No answer. I went to check. She was on the floor. Just lying there next to the counter, the kettle still steaming on the stove. I knew immediately she was gone. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't there anymore. I called the ambulance anyway, did the CPR they tell you to do, but I knew. Heart attack. Massive, the paramedics said later. She was 53 years old. The funeral was on a Saturday. Her whole family came. My sister Anne-Marie drove up from Cape Town, people from the post office, neighbors, the congregation from church. Everyone kept telling me how sorry they were, how sudden it was, how she was in a better place now. I just nodded and thanked them. What else do you do? After everyone left, I went back to that house, and it felt like a museum. Every room had her in it. The kitchen where she died, the bedroom where her clothes still hung in the wardrobe, the lounge where we'd watch TV together every evening, even the garden with her tomato plants still growing like nothing had changed. I tried going back to work. My supervisor, Jan, took me aside after a week and said, "Henny, you're not the same Boet anymore. You walk past letter boxes, you hand mail to the wrong houses. Take some time, China. We'll sort it out." He was right. I couldn't focus. Couldn't remember which streets I'd already done, which I hadn't. The routine that had been automatic for 32 years suddenly felt impossible. I took early retirement. They were good about it. Full pension, handshake, small party at the depot. Then I had to decide what to do with the house. I couldn't stay there. Every corner reminded me that she should be there and wasn't. I sold it for 3.2 million rand. That's about 210,000 US dollars. More money than I'd ever had in my life, sitting in my bank account like blood money. Like someone had put a price on 26 years of marriage. My sister Anne-Marie called every few days from Cape Town. "You need to do something, Henny," she'd say. "Travel. Go see the world. Don't just sit there." But I wasn't sitting there. I'd moved to a small flat in Northcliffe, temporary, just until I figured things out. Most days I'd wake up and not know what to do with myself. No wife, no house, no job, no routine. Just emptiness. And that money in the bank mocking me. Late at night, I'd scroll through Facebook, and one evening I found a group called Expats Over 50 Southeast Asia. Men mostly, posting photos from Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, Cambodia. Beach sunsets, cheap beer, smiling faces. Stories about living on $1,000 a month in paradise. Some of it was obviously rubbish old guys bragging about young girlfriends, that sort of thing. But some of it seemed genuine. Men who'd retired, sold up, started over somewhere warm and affordable. Vietnam kept catching my eye. Not Thailand. Too many South Africans went there, and they all came back with stories about getting scammed or ripped off. Vietnam seemed different, undiscovered somehow. The photos showed beautiful beaches, ancient temples, bustling cities. The cost of living looked incredibly cheap, and nobody there would know me as that poor widower Henny from the post office. I started researching properly. Read blogs, watched YouTube videos, joined Vietnam-specific groups. Da Nang kept coming up, beach city in the middle of the country. Growing expat community, good weather, cheaper than Hanoi or Saigon. One night, maybe 3 months after Marilise died, I just thought, why not? What's keeping me in South Africa? The house is sold, the job is gone, I've got no children. My sister's in Cape Town, but we see each other twice a year at most. I wasn't planning to move permanently. Just go, see what it's like, breathe different air for a while. Maybe feel something other than empty. I booked a one-way ticket to Da Nang for March. Anne-Marie thought I was mad. You don't speak Vietnamese. You've never been to Asia. You don't know anyone there, she said. I told her that was exactly the point. I needed to go somewhere. Nobody knew my story. I packed 2 suitcases. Clothes, a few photos of Marilise because I couldn't leave her behind completely, my laptop, important documents, gave away most of my furniture, kept a few boxes in Anne-Marie's garage, closed my flat lease. At 57 years old, everything I owned fit in 2 suitcases in 3 cardboard boxes. The night before I left, I sat in that empty Northcliffe flat with a bottle of brandy and looked at my bank balance. 3.2 million rand, less what I'd spent on the flat and living expenses. Still over 3 million. Still about 200,000 US dollars. I'd never been rich, never even been comfortable really. And now I had more money than my father made in his entire working life. And it meant nothing. It couldn't bring Marilise back. It couldn't fill the house. It couldn't give me a reason to wake up in the morning. I finished the brandy and went to bed. Tomorrow, I'd fly to Vietnam. Not forever. Just to see if I could feel something other than this hollow ache that followed me everywhere. I had no idea what was waiting for me there. The plane touched down at Da Nang International Airport on a humid March evening. The heat hit me the moment I stepped off the aircraft. Thick, wet heat that wrapped around you like a blanket. Nothing like Johannesburg's dry summers. This was air you had to breathe slowly, air that stuck to your skin. Inside the terminal, Vietnamese voices surrounded me, rapid-fire tones rising and falling like music I couldn't decode. The immigration officer stamped my passport without looking at me. 30 days. I collected my 2 suitcases and walked out into chaos. The motorbikes. Jesus, the motorbikes. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, flowing past the airport entrance like a river with no rules. Families of 4 on a single bike. Women in conical hats balancing impossible loads. The sound was constant engines revving, horns honking, everyone somehow avoiding collision by centimeters. I stood there with my luggage thinking, how does anyone cross this street? A taxi driver approached, said something in Vietnamese, pointed at his car. I nodded. He charged me 300,000 dong to get to Thuong Beach area, about $12, which I'd learn later was triple the fair price. But right then, I didn't care. I just wanted to stop moving. The hotel was small, clean enough, on a side street off in Thuong, $4 to $25 a night. Paid in dong 575,000 of them, which felt like play money. All those zeros. The room had a bed, a bathroom, air conditioning that rattled but worked. I unpacked my 2 suitcases, hung Marilise's photo on the wall, and sat on the bed, not knowing what to do next. That first week, I just existed. Learning to cross the street without dying became my main achievement each day. You have to walk steady, the other expats told me later. Don't stop, don't speed up. Just walk at a constant pace and let the motorbikes flow around you like water around a rock. Took me 3 days to trust the system. I found a fee stall 2 blocks from the hotel, same vendor every morning. Little old woman, maybe 70, sat on a plastic stool stirring a pot of broth that smelled like Heaven Star anise. Ginger. Beef bones simmered for hours. She'd see me coming and start laughing, called me Ông Gia, which I learned later means old man. 30,000 dong for a bowl, about $1.20. She'd watch me struggle with the chopsticks, show me how to add the herbs. Thai basil, saw leaf, lime, chili. That five became my anchor. Same stall, same bowl, same old woman laughing at the foreign man who couldn't use chopsticks properly. But the loneliness was worse than back in South Africa. At least there, people knew me. Jan from the post office would call to check in. Anne-Marie would message. Neighbors would stop by with casseroles and sympathy. Here, I was completely anonymous. Nobody knew about Marilee Z. Nobody knew why I looked sad. I was just another old foreign man wandering around Da Nang, and there were plenty of those. The beach was beautiful white sand, warm water, palm trees, but I couldn't enjoy it. I'd sit there watching young couples, Vietnamese families, thinking about how Marilee's never got to see this, how we'd talked about traveling someday, maybe when we retired properly. And now here I was on the beach alone, with more money than we'd ever had together, and no one to share it with. After 2 weeks, I found Highlands Coffee on Thuong Tu. Familiar Vietnamese chain, but it felt Western enough to be comfortable. Other expats gathered there in the mornings. Older guys, mostly 50s and 60s, some with Vietnamese girlfriends young enough to be their daughters, some alone like me. I'd sit in the corner with my Vietnamese phrase book, bought it at a bookshop downtown for 120,000 dong, and methodically work through the words. Left hand for domestic, right hand for international. That's how I'd sorted mail for 32 years, and that's how my brain still worked. I'd categorize the Vietnamese words the same way. Greetings in one mental pile, food words in another, numbers, directions, polite phrases. I wrote them in a notebook, practiced the tones, got most of them wrong. The waitresses would smile politely when I tried to order cà phê soin in Vietnamese, then respond in English. 6 weeks in, I had a routine. Coffee shop mornings with my phrase book, walk on the beach in the afternoons when the heat wasn't so brutal. Simple dinners, sometimes the phi stall, sometimes ban ma from a street cart, sometimes si karma at a small restaurant near my hotel. Early bed, usually by 9. Wake up, do it again. I wasn't happy, but I wasn't as hollow as I'd been in that Northcliffe flat. The routine helped. The anonymity helped. Nobody here pitied me. Then one morning in late April, there was a new waitress at Highlands Coffee. Younger than the others, maybe late 20s, with long black hair tied back in a ponytail. She brought my usual coffee cà phê soin, iced coffee with condensed milk, and noticed the phrase book open on my table. "You learning Vietnamese?" she asked in careful English, each word pronounced slowly. I looked up. "Trying to," I said. "Not very successfully, I'm afraid." She smiled, and it wasn't the polite service smile the other waitresses gave. It was genuine, reached her eyes. "Vietnamese very difficult," she said. "Many tone. You speak wrong tone, you say wrong meaning." "I've noticed," I said. Made a joke about how I'd tried to say cà phê yesterday, and the vendor thought I was asking for eggplant. She laughed, proper laugh, not fake. "I am Lin," she said, extending her hand Western style. "Henny," I said, shaking it. During her break, 15 minutes later, she came and sat at my table. Didn't ask permission, just sat down with her own coffee, pointed at my phrase book. "You say fa wrong," she said. "Listen, say fa, down tone, then flat tone. You saying ka fa." She demonstrated the difference. To me, it sounded identical. "Again," she said patiently. I tried. She laughed, shook her head, tried to explain about the 6 Vietnamese tones using hand gestures, rising and falling like music. Something about her directness reminded me of the post office. No games, just honest service. She wasn't flirting, wasn't playing any angle I could detect, just a waitress on her break, helping a struggling student. Over the next 2 weeks, it became our routine. I'd come in around 9, order my coffee, sit with the phrase book. During her break, Lynn would sit at my table and teach me properly. She told me she was studying English at night school, trying to improve for better job opportunities. Her family had a rice farm in Quang Nam province, about an hour south. She'd come to Da Nang for work and education. She never asked about my wedding ring. I still wore it, couldn't bring myself to take it off. She never asked why I was in Vietnam, how long I was staying, whether I was married or single, never mentioned money, never suggested I buy her coffee or dinner. When I offered to pay for her coffee one morning, she refused. "I work here," she said, smiling. "I get free coffee." The other expats at Highlands started calling her Henny's teacher. An Australian guy named Greg made jokes about it. "Got yourself a pretty tutor there, mate," he'd say. "Watch yourself. These girls are all after your money, China." He called everyone China, picked it up from the South African expats, I suppose. But Lynn wasn't like that. She was just friendly. Professional, even. Teaching me Vietnamese the way I'd taught new postal workers how to sort mail methodically, patiently, one piece at a time. For the first time since Marilee's died, I found myself looking forward to mornings, not because I was healing, not because Vietnam was some magical cure for grief, just because it felt good to have a routine again, to have someone treat me like a normal person instead of a charity case or a widower or a mark. Looking back now, I should have wondered why a pretty 29-year-old woman was spending her breaks teaching Vietnamese to an old South African postal worker for free. I should have questioned it, but I didn't, because for those 2 weeks in late April, sitting in that coffee shop learning to say ki fi properly, I felt something other than empty. And when you've been empty for as long as I had, you don't question what fills the space. 2 months after I met Lynn, late May, she asked if I'd like to meet her uncle. He live in Da Nang, she said during her break at Highlands Coffee. He want meet the South African student. I tell him about you, he say. We must have dinner. I felt a spike of nerves. First social event since Morelli's funeral. The thought of sitting at a table making conversation with strangers made my chest tight. But Lynn smiled and said, just casual dinner. My Uncle Thung, he very friendly. You will like. The restaurant was in Hui Shao district, local place, no English menu. Uncle Thang was waiting outside when we arrived on Lynn's motorbike. She'd been giving me rides, said it was easier than me trying to navigate a grab bike. He was maybe 50, stocky build, wearing a polo shirt and jeans. Extended his hand. Western style. Henny, welcome, he said in decent English. I am Thung. Lynn tell me you learn Vietnamese. Very good, very good. His wife was inside already, cooking in the small kitchen visible from our table. The restaurant was proper Vietnamese plastic stools, fluorescent lights, the smell of fish sauce and lemongrass, families eating around us, motorbikes parked on the pavement outside. Everything felt authentic, real. Thung asked about South Africa, about Johannesburg, about postal work. He seemed genuinely interested, not making polite conversation but actual questions. I work construction, he said. Building, building, always building in Da Nang. You see all the new hotel? I helped build some. He made a joke about Vietnamese traffic versus Johannesburg traffic. Here, motorbike go everywhere like water. In South Africa, you have big road. Everyone follow rule, yes? I laughed, said, not exactly. Johannesburg had its own chaos. He seemed pleased, I understood humor. His wife brought dish after dish, ka ko tea, fish simmered in clay pot with caramel sauce, buon chu with grilled pork and herbs, gai quong, fresh spring rolls. She explained each one, in Vietnamese, Lynn translating, showing me how to wrap the herbs and noodles in rice paper, how to mix the dipping sauce properly. Everything felt proper, transparent, not the predatory scenario Greg and the other expats warned about. Uncle Thang mentioned that Lynn was a good girl, studied hard, helped her family. Said I was good influence for her English. She improved much since meeting you, he said. You're a good teacher. I told him she was teaching me more than I was teaching her. He nodded approvingly. After dinner, maybe 2 hours of eating and talking and laughing, Sung paid the bill before I could even reach for my wallet. Waved me off when I protested. You are guest, he said. Next time, maybe you pay. But tonight, you are guest in my city. Lynn and I walked back toward Thuong. The evening was warm, air thick with humidity and the smell of street food grilled meat, steaming fassi, ripe fruit from vendors' carts. Motorbikes streamed past, headlights cutting through the dusk. She suggested we stop for che, Vietnamese dessert, at a small street stall. We sat on plastic stools, ate che yu zan, mung bean dessert with coconut milk and ice, sweet and cooling in the heat. Lynn was quiet for a bit, then asked, Henny, you was married? First personal question in 2 months. Direct, no build-up. I touched my wedding ring without thinking. Yes, I said. 26 years. Her name was Marilise. She in South Africa? No, she died. 3 years ago. Heart attack. Lynn's face softened. I am sorry, she said quietly. No platitudes about her being in a better place, no trying to fix it with words, just listening. I found myself telling her about that Tuesday morning. The kettle whistling, finding Marilise on the kitchen floor, how I sold the house because I couldn't stay there, how I came to Vietnam not knowing what I was looking for. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she nodded slowly. Then she shared her own story. Her father was sick, she said. Liver problems from Agent Orange exposure during the American War. Her family had a rice farm in Quang Nam province, struggled sometimes with money, with her father's health. But she said it matter of fact, the way you'd mentioned the weather. Not asking for anything, not hinting, just sharing her life the way I'd shared mine. Family is difficult sometimes, she said, but we must help each other. In Vietnam, family is everything. We finished our sha and walked the rest of the way in comfortable silence. She dropped me at my hotel, said goodnight, drove off into the river of motorbikes flowing down in Thuong Street. That night I lay in bed and realized I hadn't thought about the empty house in Rambert for an entire day. First time that had happened since I'd arrived in Vietnam. Maybe first time since Marlies died. 3 weeks later, early June, Lynn mentioned during our morning coffee session that her landlady was raising the rent. From 3 million to 4.5 million dong, she said. That's from about $120 to $180. I cannot pay. Maybe I must go back to province, stop night school. She said it casually, not looking at me, stirring her coffee, not asking, just stating a problem. I'd moved out of the hotel by then, upgraded to a proper apartment in Enguhan Soon district, 2 bedrooms, kitchen, balcony overlooking the street, 5 million dong a month, about $400. More space than I needed, but the hotel room had started to feel like a cell. I thought about it for maybe 30 seconds, then said, carefully, not wanting to offend, I have a 2-bedroom place now. Second room's empty. You could use it, save money for school, no strings, Boet, just roommates. She looked up, surprised, hesitated. I cannot ask you to do this. You're not asking. I'm offering. You teach me Vietnamese every day for free. Call it even. She said she'd think about it. 2 days later, she showed up at the apartment with one small bag. Everything she owned fit in that bag, some clothes, toiletries, her English textbooks, a photo of her family. She insisted on paying 2.3 million dong toward the rent, about $100. I refused. You teach me Vietnamese. We're even, Boet. The smile on her face when she relaxed into the arrangement, when she set her bag down in the second bedroom and looked around like she couldn't quite believe her luck, that felt like the first real thing I'd built since Marlies died. Looking back now, I should have questioned why a woman I'd known for 2 months was comfortable moving in so quickly. Should have wondered about the timing of her landlady raising the rent right when I'd mentioned my new apartment. Should have noticed how smoothly everything fit together, like pieces of a puzzle someone else was assembling. But I didn't question it. Because for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't just existing. I was building something. Had someone to share meals with, someone to talk to in the evenings, someone who made the apartment feel less empty. And when you've been empty as long as I had, you don't question what fills the space. You just hold on to it and hope it lasts. July and August passed in comfortable routine. Lynn worked mornings at Highlands Coffee, went to night school 3 evenings a week, studied at the apartment the other nights. I'd explored Da Nang, walked the Dragon Bridge, sat at beach cafes, wandered through Han Market, learning the Vietnamese names for vegetables and fish, practicing my tones with vendors who'd laugh and correct me. Most evenings we'd eat dinner together. She'd cook Vietnamese food, proper home cooking, not restaurant food, sang tum tum with grilled pork and pickled vegetables, can chua, sour soup with fish and tamarind that made your mouth pucker. She'd take me to the local markets, point at ingredients, teach me the names. Rau mushung, water spinach, ca thu, mackerel, tatim, prawns. My brain cataloged them the same way I'd cataloged postal codes, systematic, methodical, building patterns. She introduced me to her friends from night school. We'd go to birthday dinners at local restaurants. Me, the only foreigner at tables of young Vietnamese, everyone speaking half English, half Vietnamese. Lynn translating when I got lost. They treated me normally, not like a rich foreigner, not like a curiosity, just like Lynn's friend who was trying to learn their language. I felt like I was building a life, not hiding from my old one anymore, actually building something new. The relationship shifted gradually. She started touching my arm when she talked, sitting closer on the couch when we watched Vietnamese TV shows I barely understood. Small things, natural things. One evening in late August, we were on the balcony. The air was thick with humidity and the smell of street food from the vendors below, grilled corn, bon ho gio sizzling on hot plates. Motorbikes streamed past, endless flow of headlights. She was teaching me a Vietnamese song, laughing at my pronunciation, and then she just leaned over and kissed me. It felt natural. Not transactional, not calculated, just 2 people who'd been circling something for weeks finally acknowledging it. She was 28 years younger than me. I was conscious of that, felt weird about it, if I'm honest. But she said age didn't matter in Vietnam like it does in the West. Said I was kind and stable and made her feel safe. Said she dated Vietnamese men her age who just wanted to drink beer and ride motorbikes and didn't think about the future. We became a couple. Simple as that. I emailed my sister Anne-Marie for the first time in months. Sent photos of me and Lynn at the beach, at dinner, on the balcony. Told her I'd met someone special, someone different. Not like the stories you hear about Western men and Vietnamese women. Told her Lynn had her own life, her own goals, wasn't asking me for anything. Anne-Marie responded cautiously, happy but worried. Just be careful, Henny, she wrote. I know you're lonely, but don't rush into anything. Make sure she's real. I told myself. Anne-Marie didn't understand. She'd never been to Vietnam, never met Lynn, was just repeating the same warnings everyone gives. September, everything changed. Lynn got a call one afternoon, spoke rapid Vietnamese, her face going pale. When she hung up, she was shaking. Her father had collapsed in the rice field. The village clinic couldn't help. His liver was failing, they said. He needed to go to hospital in Da Nang. Uncle Thing helped arrange transport. 2 days later, Lynn's father arrived at Da Nang General Hospital. Old man, maybe 70, thin as wire, skin yellow from jaundice. The doctors diagnosed advanced liver disease, said he needed medication and monitoring. Estimated cost 75 million dong. That's about 3,200. Lynn was distraught, crying in the hospital corridor, saying her family had no money for this. Maybe her father should just go home to die in the village. I couldn't watch her suffer like that. I paid the hospital bill directly, didn't even hesitate. Went to the cashier, transferred 75 million dong from my account, got the receipt. Lynn was overwhelmed with gratitude. Kept saying, I pay you back, I promise, I pay you back. I told her not to worry about it. Used the phrase she'd taught me weeks before, Jia In, Jiop Jin. Family helps family. Her father stayed in the hospital 2 weeks. I visited most days, sat beside his bed while he slept or stared at the ceiling. He'd hold my hand sometimes, speak Vietnamese. I couldn't understand. Lynn would translate. He says you're a good man. He says Buddha will bless you for helping our family. When he was stable enough, he returned to the province, recovered somewhat, not cured, but functioning. I told myself the 3,200 was nothing. I had over 200,000 in the bank, money I'd never have if Marilise hadn't died. Using it to save someone's father felt like the first good thing I'd done with that blood money. October, Lynn's brother Min messaged on Facebook. I'd never met him, but Lynn had mentioned him before, ran a small motorbike parts business in Tam Key, near her village. He had an opportunity, he wrote in careful English. A supplier was offering bulk inventory at discount brake pads, chains, spark plugs could buy for 185 million dong, about 8,000, sell for triple profit over 6 months. But he needed capital now. Could pay Henny back with interest in 6 months, guaranteed. Lynn showed me the business documents, supplier invoice, photos of Min's shop, inventory lists. Everything looked legitimate. She said it was a real opportunity, but I shouldn't feel pressured. Said her family would understand if I said no. I thought about it for 2 days. Looked at my bank balance, still over 205,000 even after the hospital bill. Calculated what 8,000 meant in the larger picture. Less than 4% of my total savings. An investment in Lynn's family. In our future together. I transferred the money. Min sent a thank you video, young guy, maybe 30, standing in front of his shop, speaking Vietnamese with Lynn translating. He promised repayment in 6 months, called me Ann Henny. Older brother Henny, said I was part of the family now. I felt good about it. For the first time since Marilise died, I wasn't just taking from a relationship. Wasn't just the broken widower being comforted and helped. I was contributing. Being part of something. Building a future with someone who needed me as much as I needed her. Looking back now, I should have wondered why all these crises happened right after we became a couple. Should have questioned the timing, father's collapse, brother's business opportunity, everything perfectly spaced to seem independent, but not overwhelming. Should have asked to meet Min in person, visit the shop, verify the business was real. But I didn't. Because the pattern made sense to me. In Vietnamese culture, family obligations are everything. Lynn had explained that. When one person does well, they help the whole family. When someone has money, they share it. That's just how things work here. And I had money. More than I needed. More than I'd ever use, just living alone in a Da Nang apartment, eating pho and walking on the beach. So why not help? Why not be part of a family again? Why not use Marilise's life insurance money to actually build something instead of just watching it sit in a bank account accusing me? Made perfect sense at the time. Perfect sense. November, Lynn mentioned her younger sister Hung had been accepted to Da Nang University of Economics. She showed me the acceptance letter, official. Letterhead, university seal, everything proper. Said it was huge honor for the family, first person to attend university. But tuition was under 5 million dong for the first year. That's about 4,500. My family cannot pay, Lin said. She wasn't crying, wasn't begging, just stated it like a fact. Maybe Hyung must say no, work in rice field like our mother. I thought about that. A smart girl giving up university because of money. Money I had sitting in the bank doing nothing. I'll pay it, I said. Consider it investment in the family's future. Lin's eyes went wide. Henny, this too much. I cannot ask this. You didn't ask. I'm offering. She said I should pay directly to the university. Very proper, very official. She'd handle the transactions since she knew the system. Had the university contacts. I transferred 105 million dong to her account. She sent me a receipt a few days later. Looked legitimate, university stamp and everything. That was November. Running total, 15,700 since September. December, the family buffalo died. Lin showed me photos on her phone, massive animal lying dead in a rice field, her mother kneeling beside it crying. She explained that rice farming depends on buffalo. They plow the fields, help with the harvest. Replacing it cost 65 million dong, about 2,800. Family couldn't afford it. Without buffalo, they couldn't work the land properly, rice harvest would fail. I wired the money to Uncle Thing. He sent a thank you message, said he'd purchased the buffalo. Family was grateful. Total now, 18,500 in 4 months. January, Lin's mother needed dental surgery. Abscessed tooth, infection spreading, could be dangerous if untreated. Medical documents provided hospital letterhead, doctor's signature, treatment plan. Cost, 28 million dong, about 1,200. I paid it. What else was I going to do? Let her mother die of infection. Total, 19,700. February, Uncle Thong messaged directly. His construction business needed equipment, rental deposit, concrete mixer, scaffolding for a big project. Temporary loan, 82 million dong, about 3,500. Would be repaid in 30 days when the client paid him. I hesitated on that one. First time I'd paused before sending money. But Thang had been good to me, had welcomed me to his family, and it was a loan, not a gift. Would be repaid. I sent it. Total, 23,200 in 6 months. I still had over 105,000 in the bank. The money felt manageable. These weren't frivolous expenses. They were family emergencies, investments, temporary loans. In Vietnamese culture, this was normal. Family takes care of family. Lin was increasingly affectionate during this period. Started talking about the future, about us. Said maybe we should visit her village properly. Let her parents meet me officially, do a traditional ceremony. The way she talked about it made it sound like we were building toward marriage. I'd go to Highlands Coffee sometimes, and Greg, the Australian guy, would make comments. Henny's turned into an ATM, he joked one morning. How much you given her so far, mate? I got defensive, told him he didn't understand Vietnamese culture. Family obligations were different here. Lin wasn't like the other girls. He just shrugged, said, your money, China. Just be careful. But small doubts started creeping in. Min never mentioned repaying that 8,000 from October. Never even brought it up. Uncle Thung's 30-day loan for the equipment rental came and went, no repayment, no mention of it. When I asked Lin about it, she got upset. Said I didn't trust her family, didn't understand how hard things were in Vietnam. Said if I was going to treat every loan like a business transaction, maybe we shouldn't be together. I apologized immediately. Felt guilty for even asking. Then her cousin got married and needed money for wedding expenses. 51 million dong, about 2,200. I sent it. Family home needed repairs after storm damage. 42 million dong, about 0,800. I sent that too. By March, 1 year into the relationship, I'd given 31,400. I kept a mental tally the way I'd kept track of postal routes for 32 years. Left hand for family emergencies, right hand for business investments. My brain tried to organize it, make it logical, justify the pattern. I suggested to Lin we should make the village visit official. I wanted to meet her parents properly, maybe discuss our future, possibly marriage. She seemed nervous about it, said the timing wasn't right yet. Maybe in a few months, her father's health was still fragile, the family was stressed. I didn't push. Told myself she knew her family better than I did. April brought another crisis. Her father had a relapsed liver failing again, needed expensive medication not available in the province. Had to buy it from a Da Nang pharmacy, special import, 3-month supply. Cost, 98 million dong, about 4,200. Lin was distraught when she told me. He will die without this medicine, she said, tears streaming down her face. But we have no money left. I asked so much from you already, I cannot ask more. I held her while she cried, felt her body shaking against mine. How could I say no? I paid for the medication. Total now, 35,600 in 8 months. I still had over 74,000 in the bank. Still comfortable financially. But the pattern had become undeniable, even to me. Every few weeks, another emergency. Another crisis. Another expense. And Lin knew exactly how to frame each request, never demanding, always reluctant, always with documentation, always about family survival, not luxury. I'd sit on the balcony some evenings, watching the motorbikes stream past below, smelling the street food and exhaust, and think about what I'd become. The family ATM, like Greg said. But I'd tell myself this was different. This was love. This was building a life together. This was how Vietnamese families worked. Looking back now, I should have seen the pattern. Should have noticed that every crisis was perfectly timed, perfectly sized to be believable, but significant. Should have wondered why none of the loans were ever repaid, why I never actually met Sheng the university student, why the village visit kept getting postponed. Should have trusted my gut when it said something felt wrong, but I didn't. Because admitting something was wrong meant admitting I'd been played. Meant admitting I was alone again. Meant going back to being that empty widower who came to Vietnam to escape his grief. And I wasn't ready to be that person again. So I kept paying, kept believing, kept telling myself this was real. The easiest mark in the world isn't someone stupid. It's someone desperate not to be alone. I was Exhibit A, Boet. By May, 14 months into the relationship, I'd given 68,000. Lin's sister had a motorbike accident, medical bills. 88 million dong, about 3,800. Brother Min needed to expand his business, another 295 million dong, about 12,600. Mother's cataract surgery, 98 million dong, about 4,200. Various smaller emergencies, cousin's school fees, uncle's motorbike repair, family home, needs new roof, another 12,800 spread across a dozen requests. My savings were down to 142,000, but I told myself it was fine. We were building a future together. This was investment, not loss. Then Lin said her family was finally ready. They wanted to meet me properly, discuss future arrangements. The village visit we'd been postponing for months. We took a bus from Da Nang to Quang Nam province on a Saturday morning. Journey took 2 hours through rice fields and small towns. The bus packed with Vietnamese families and chickens in cages and bags of vegetables. Lin seemed increasingly anxious as we got closer. Kept checking her phone, biting her lip. You nervous? I asked. Yes. I want my parents to like you, to approve of us. I squeezed her hand. They will, Boe. Don't worry. We arrived at a village, maybe 20 kilometers outside Hoi An. Red dirt roads, concrete houses with tin roofs, rice fields stretching to the horizon. Chickens wandering freely, dogs sleeping in the shade. The smell of burning rice husks and fish sauce hung in the humid air. We walked down the main road, Lin carrying a small bag with gifts for her family fruit, expensive cookies from Da Nang, a bottle of rice wine. She pointed ahead to a house set back from the road, surrounded by banana trees and a small vegetable garden. That one, she said quietly. That's my family house. Before we reached the gate, the front door opened. A man stepped out, about my age, maybe late 50s, wearing shorts and a stained t-shirt. He looked at Lin, his face went dark. He started shouting in Vietnamese, loud, angry. Gesturing at her, at me, at the house behind him. Lin went completely white. Frozen in the road, the bag of gifts hanging from her hand. The man shouted louder. Neighbors started emerging from their houses, drawn by the commotion. An elderly woman came running from behind the house. Lin's mother, I assumed, also shouting, but at the man, protective of Lin, putting herself between them. Then children appeared. 2 girls, maybe 8 and 10 years old, running from inside the house calling, Ma! 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 They were calling Lin Mom. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Uncle Thung appeared from somewhere he'd followed us from Da Nang, I realized later, though I hadn't seen him on the bus. He tried to calm the situation, speaking rapid Vietnamese, hands up, placating. The man Dung, I'd learn his name later, kept shouting, pointing at me, at Lin, at his house. The neighbors formed a circle around us, maybe 20 people, all watching, some on phones filming. Thung turned to me, his face ashamed, started speaking in broken English, translating pieces of what was being said. This is Lin's husband, Dong. He work in Saigon most time, but he come home today, unexpected. The children, they are Lin and Dong children, 7 years married. I stood there. Couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Thing kept talking, filling in the truth piece by piece. The night school was fabricated. Lin never went to night school. She went back to this village every few weeks. The university's sister Hung didn't exist. The sick father, he was standing right there in the growing crowd, healthy, working age, looking ashamed but alive. Brother Min's motorbike business was fiction. Thing himself wasn't her uncle, he was her mother's cousin, paid to play the role. The buffalo that died? They didn't even own buffalo anymore. Sold them 5 years ago. Every document forged or purchased from someone who knew how to make fake hospital papers, fake university letters, fake business invoices. Every crisis invented, scheduled, calibrated to extract maximum money while maintaining believability. The apartment in Da Nang where Ling supposedly lived. Rented just for the illusion. She'd go there when I was around, then return to this village, to her husband, to her children, with my money. Diong was furious, but not about the affair. He was angry about the disruption, the exposure, the foreign man showing up at his house where neighbors could see, where his children could see, ruining the income stream. Lin finally spoke. Rapid Vietnamese, defensive, gesturing at me, at Dong, at the crowd. Dong translated pieces, reluctant, shamefaced. She say you give gifts willingly. She never steal from you. She say this is how things work. Foreign men are rich. Vietnamese families are poor. It's just survival. She say you knew what this was. I stood there. 57 years old. 32 years sorting mail by the rules. Left hand domestic, right hand international. Everything organized, everything honest. Widower who thought he'd found love again. Who thought he built something real. Understanding now that for 14 months, I'd been nothing but an income source. Every kiss calculated. Every smile practiced. Every I love you scripted. Every tear manufactured. Every emergency timed for maximum impact. I didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't demand my money back or call them criminals or make a scene. One just turned around and walked away. Back down the red dirt road, past the neighbors filming on their phones, past the rice fields and banana trees, away from that house and that village and that lie. Left my bag there. Didn't care. Had nothing in it I needed. Singh ran after me. Henny, please, I so sorry. I needed money too, family very poor. I did not know it would. I can pay back some, maybe I can. I kept walking, didn't look at him, didn't respond. Caught a bus back to Da Nang. Sat in the back, staring out the window at Vietnam streaming past the country I'd come to for a fresh start, for healing, for hope. When I got back to the apartment, Lin had already been there. Her belongings were gone. My laptop was gone. The 2,300 cash I kept in the drawer, about 53 million dong gone. She'd blocked my number, blocked my Facebook, vanished. I filed a police report the next day. The officer was sympathetic, spoke decent English. Young guy, maybe 30, seemed genuinely sorry for me. But he explained the reality. These were gifts between romantic partners, yes? No written contract, no loan agreement. Vietnamese law sees this as civil matter, not criminal. Very difficult to prove fraud. Even if we prosecute, you want to stay in Vietnam for 2-year trial? Cost more money, maybe get nothing back anyway. He suggested I move on, learn the lesson. Plenty of foreign men get caught like this, he said. Not all Vietnamese women, he was careful to say, but the ones who do this are professional, organized, sometimes whole families involved. I sat in the empty apartment that night, 68,000 porter, dignity shattered. Looked at the photos on my phone, the ones I'd sent to Anne-Marie over the past year, smiling with Lynn on the beach, at restaurants, on our balcony. Photos I'd captioned, found someone special, and building a life together, and thinking about bringing her to South Africa. The worst part wasn't the money. I could survive on 142,000, live modestly, make it last. The worst part was that one told my sister I'd found love, told Marilise's memory I was moving on, told myself I was building something real. All fiction, all performance, all con. And I believed every word because I was desperate to believe. Because being an income source felt better than being alone. That realization that I'd paid $68,000 not to be lonely felt worse than finding Marily's dead on the kitchen floor. At least her death was real. The week after I discovered the truth was the lowest point since Marily's died. Different kind of pain, though, not grief, humiliation, self-loathing. The kind that makes you avoid mirrors because you can't stand the person looking back. I considered going back to South Africa, but what was there? The house in Randburg was sold. My job at the post office was gone. I'd be returning in defeat, proving everyone who'd warned me about Vietnam right. 57 years old, no wife, no girlfriend, no purpose. Just the cautionary tale Greg and the other expats could tell newcomers. See that guy? Lost 68 grand to a married woman. Thought he was in love. I sat in the apartment for 3 days not eating. Just calculating my stupidity and spreadsheet format postal worker habits die hard. 3,200 for the fake father's fake illness. 8,000 for the fake brother's fake business. 4,500 for the fake sister's fake university. 2,800 for the fake dead buffalo. 1,200 for fake dental surgery. On and on. $68,000 of believing what I desperately wanted to be true. I had $142,000 left, still enough to survive. But every dollar felt contaminated now. Reminded me of how easily I'd given away the rest. The turning point came on day 4. My landlord stopped by Min, nice Vietnamese man, maybe 45. Spoke good English, owned several rental properties around Da Nang. He knocked, said he'd noticed I looked terrible, asked if everything was okay. I told him everything, expected judgment, got empathy instead. He sat down, listened to the whole story, nodded like he'd heard it before. Then he said, and I'll never forget this. This happens very frequently with foreign men. Lonely men, grieving men, trusting men. They meet Vietnamese women who see opportunity. Not all Vietnamese women, most are honest, good people, but the ones who target foreigners, they are professional, organized. Sometimes whole families involved. They share information about which foreigners have money, how much. He said, I seemed like a good man. Should stay in Vietnam if I wanted, but must rebuild smarter. Suggested teaching English. Many language centers need native speakers. Don't require formal qualifications. Pay $15 to $20 per hour. Enough to live modestly. I dismissed it. I'm a postal worker, not a teacher. He shrugged. You speak English. Vietnamese people want to learn English. That's all the qualification you need. Desperation forced reconsideration. I applied to 3 language centers. Got hired at 2. Chose the one in Ingu Han Son, District, $18 an hour, 20 hours per week. Teenagers and business people wanting to improve their English, practice conversation, learn Western pronunciation. I moved to a cheaper apartment, $200 a month studio in Thong Khe District, further from the beach but more authentic Vietnamese neighborhood. Sold the few nice things I'd bought during my time with Lynn the motorbike, the expensive phone, the fancy coffee maker. Recovered about $2,000. Established a strict budget, $800 per month total expenses. With teaching income and my pension from South Africa, I could save about $600 monthly. Rebuilding slowly. That was 6 months ago. Early November now, 2 years since I first arrived in Vietnam. I've stabilized. Teach English, 5 days a week. Teenagers preparing for university exams. Office workers wanting to advance their careers. A few other expats' Vietnamese girlfriends improving their English. I live simply, $146,000 in savings now, the $142,000 plus modest additions. Made a few genuine friends among my Vietnamese neighbors and fellow teachers. Haven't dated, not interested. That part of me died with Lynn's betrayal. I've learned to recognize the red flags I missed before. When a woman is too interested too quickly, when family emergencies always require specific dollar amounts, when documentation looks professional but you're never allowed to verify it directly, when repayment is always promised but never delivered, when questions about money make her angry instead of understanding. But here's what I really learned, and this is what I want you to understand if you're watching this. The lesson isn't that Vietnamese women are scammers. Most aren't, just like most people anywhere aren't scammers. The lesson is that broken men are the easiest targets in the world, because desperation makes you willing to believe anything that soothes the pain. Marily's dying left me so empty that when Lynn paid attention to me, made me feel alive again, I would have believed the sky was green if she'd said so. I wasn't scammed because I was stupid. 32 years sorting mail proves I can follow systems, spot patterns, trust processes. I was scammed because I was lonely. And loneliness makes you ignore every warning sign, rationalize every red flag, pay any price to feel whole again. If I could talk to myself 14 months ago, I wouldn't tell him to avoid Vietnam or avoid Vietnamese women. I'd tell him to fix what's broken inside before looking for someone else to fix it for you. I'd tell him that grief doesn't heal faster in a different country. It just has different scenery. I'd tell him that real love doesn't need constant proof in the form of bank transfers. I'm still in Vietnam. Despite everything, I like teaching. Like the life I built now, the honest one without illusions. My students are good kids, work hard, appreciate having a native English speaker. My neighbors in Thanh Chi are genuine, invite me to family dinners sometimes, don't want anything from me except conversation and maybe help with English homework. I'm not bitter at Vietnam. I'm bitter at myself for being so blind. I saw Lynn once, 3 months ago. I was in Hoi An visiting the old town, stopped at a coffee shop near the Japanese bridge. She was there with a Western man, maybe 60, looked wealthy. She was touching his arm the way she used to touch mine, laughing at something he said, leaning close. I almost approached, almost warned the guy, but I didn't. Everyone has to learn their own lessons. Maybe that guy isn't broken like I was. Maybe he'll see the signs I missed. Maybe his family emergencies will actually be emergencies. Or maybe in a year, he'll be making his own video for Inside Vietnam. So here's my advice, and I mean this. If you're watching this because you're thinking about coming to Vietnam to escape something, to find something, to start over, do it. Vietnam is beautiful. The people are wonderful, the life can be good, but fix yourself first. Deal with your grief, your loneliness, your emptiness before you get on that plane. Because if you come here broken, someone will find those cracks and exploit them. And you'll blame Vietnam when really you should blame the person staring back at you in the mirror. I was that person. Paid $68,000 to learn it. Don't be me, Boet. Henny's story represents one of the most common patterns we see here on Inside Vietnam. Men who've lost wives or partners, who come to Southeast Asia not looking for adventure, but for healing. Men who mistake attention for affection, who confuse loneliness with love. But Henny did something many victims, don't he stayed. He rebuilt. He found genuine purpose rather than fleeing in shame. That $68,000 lesson bought him something valuable, self-awareness and resilience. It's important to remember that most Vietnamese people are honest, hardworking, and kind. But predators exist everywhere, and they're expert at identifying vulnerability. They know that a recently widowed man with money in the bank and emptiness in his heart will pay almost anything to feel whole again. If you know someone considering a similar move, a recent widower, a divorced man, someone running from grief, share Henny's story. Not to discourage them, but to arm them with awareness. To remind them that healing has to happen inside before it can happen anywhere else. Thanks for watching Inside Vietnam. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel for more cautionary tales and hard-won wisdom from Western expats navigating life in Vietnam. And remember, stay smart, stay skeptical, and the best deals never require urgency. Until next time.